Villagers change with the biome, but golems don't. Until today, because I found the 41 tiny texture updates that would add a huge payoff if they are added to the next update. Like diagonal rails that are actually diagonal, better buckets for our axolotls, and enchanted books that actually tell you what they're enchanted with just by looking at the texture. Starting first with our rails. Minecraft doesn't have a lot of curves, so why are our rails curved? Well, that's what this pack seems to fix. And now diagonal rails are actually diagonal, making our roller coasters a lot more seamless. But what you might not notice about this texture is that it's actually 18 by 18 as opposed to the normal 16 by 16 Minecraft textures. And as Blockier shows off in their short, that's because it makes it look a lot more smooth than this thin option. And seeing both, I'm inclined to agree. And we don't just have a fix for our diagonal rails, but also our diagonal glass panes. Which, thanks to this mod, we can now make this window in the observatory so much nicer looking. Up until now, using glass panes for a diagonal has been completely pointless. The only way it looked good is if you use the full blocks. But now we get to use the cheaper glass panes and not have to sacrifice any of the look. And while they also have mods that add this to walls and fences, I personally think the glass panes are the most interesting option. The diagonal fences just hurt my head. What's really a pain in the head though is trying to look for what painting icon is which. Just from these sprites alone, which one do you think is the picture of the skull on fire? Normally, there's no way to tell, but now we have unique icons for each one of our paintings, which not only makes it a lot easier to figure out which is which, but more importantly, it gives us all these new textures to play around with in item frames. And to me, that seems like such a no-brainer to add. I really hope we see something like this come into the future. But considering we got new paintings without changing any of this, I wouldn't hold my breath. Just like how we still don't have snowy leaves on Java Edition. Because even though snow gradually makes the leaves turn white on Bedrock, and Mojang's been adding more and more parity between the two versions, there's still no way for our leaves to turn white on Java. Which means that our Christmas trees are gonna look a lot less Christmassy. I guess it's a good thing the chest turned into present, because this has never been a gift. I want to talk about custom bed sheets for Minecraft, but first we gotta fix this issue. Since right now in Survival Vanilla, you can only add 6 patterns to a banner before you reach the limit. Just like anvils, it gets too expensive. But the game with creative mode commands has always supported more. Look at the Illager banner pattern. You literally can't make the ominous banner because we don't have enough patterns in the limit. And so a mod that fixes that is a welcome addition. Not only for some better designs, but also for decorating our new banner pattern beds. And now instead of just 16 different beds to choose from, the sky's truly the limit, letting us have the set of creeper bed sheets that we've always dreamt of. Hopefully we're able to sleep with this monster nearby. And speaking of sleeping with monsters, now we got bunk beds. Right now, if you stack 2 different beds on top of each other, it does work, but it's not exactly pretty. And so the idea instead is by extending out the bed frame, we can actually make this look a lot nicer. And it's all possible with resource packs. This isn't even a mod. Though, if they're looking for ideas, then I think a particularly cool one would be making it so that 2 beds that you place side by side extend their texture into an ultra wide bed, as opposed to just 2 twin-size mattresses. Plenty of mods add in different variants for the different chests based on wood type. And while I wouldn't be opposed to that coming to Minecraft, I actually think a better candidate could be our barrels. For one, it gives us more of a reason to use barrels, which are often forgotten about because they require an extra step of slabs to craft. And the current barrel's a lot closer in texture to the spruce than the regular chest has ever been to oak. So it looks more fitting too. And while I'm getting greedy with other variants, I think different wood types for crafting tables could be especially cool. Now, this is definitely the most radical change, so I'm not expecting it to be the most popular. But think about it, crafting tables need to show up in basically any build that you make, at least anyone that you want to live in. Yet they've never done a good job at fitting in, especially when you're crafting one of these in the nether. So if instead we could have a nether stem version of these crafting tables to have in that different dimension, it'd give a lot more form to one of the most functional blocks. It also makes for the most industrial rainbow I've ever seen. And if you're looking for rainbows, check out your life bar. Since now if you go over the original 10 hearts that we start with, you'll notice that our life bar actually changes to different colors. And I think this is such a cool idea. Not only does it build off of the yellow absorption hearts that we're familiar with, but it also keeps you from crowding up your screen when you start to get overpowered. It's not exactly fun to have 20 rows of hearts and be able to see 20 rows less. Or if you don't want to see your hearts at all, then Better F1's a great solution. And now this gives those of us on Java the option to hide our HUD similar to how we can on Bedrock, choosing instead to hide only specific options to see what you want to see. So if you want to see your hand and what you're holding but nothing else, this is the move for that. And I know for thumbnails this makes it a lot easier to take a picture. I've never liked trying to figure out which slot I'm supposed to put a pickaxe to make it look realistic. This is so much nicer. Armor trims are all about customizing your armor, but that's really only when you wear it. Since we've never been able to see the armor trims affect our armor pieces in our hotbar, but having the option to dynamically perfectly trim our armor pieces in our inventory look so much nicer. Just compare the Silence armor trim to how it was before. And again, this gives us a whole bunch more textures to play around with in item frames, which if you're a builder, immediately opens up a whole bunch of new options. Really, why would you ever want less textures instead of more? This doesn't make it any more confusing. In fact, it's easier to see which armor piece might be what. And that's also the reason why I think we should get new armor trims for our tools. What's crazy is this is already possible without any mods. This example we're showing off uses only a data pack. And just like that, 1,700 new combinations added to the game, which not only give us new treasure items that are worth finding, but it also gives a simple way to know which pickaxe might be which. So just a glance, you know which one's Fortune and which one's Silk Touch. Or if that's still not enough help, then these new tooltips should do the trick. With this tool, now if you mouse over to any of your items in your hotbar slot, you not only get the name, but also the full rundown of all of its enchantments, before it subtly fades away just as the names do currently. And it doesn't just do it for tools either. Since with shulker boxes we can see what's inside, and beehives also tell us just how many bees we're transporting, all of which save us from going into the inventory, and I think that's always appreciated. In 2014, the hat layer was added to our Minecraft skins, and now I think it's time to make that hat layer 3D. It's already fully possible with mods, and it's a complete game changer over there, letting our hats and hair stand out a lot more than just a couple of pixels floating in the air. And of course, it's not just 3D on our heads, but also on the bodies, making my skip button look better than it ever has before. And I think the fact that this already works so well with existing Minecraft skins speaks to how important it would be. It's not asking everyone to go make a new skin for this to work. It already works with the skins that we have, not just getting into the game. Let's be honest, riding a horse is lame. And while its lack of speed's never gonna match up to the Elytra, we could at least make it look cooler. And not enough animations does just that. Which is the simple change of letting us hold the reins while we're riding the horse. It makes this old feature feel a lot more modern. I mean, with Mounts of Mayhem, they're clearly not forgetting about our horses, so why not add this simple tweak and make it look a lot cooler too? That's not the only change from not enough animations that I think we should add, since after searching through the rest of these, all of them are great, but I think the ladder animation's particularly needed. And now we'd see our character climb up each individual rung, and also have a unique animation for when we sneak on the ladder to make sure we don't fall down. And while we're changing our ladders, we should probably make them 3D too. Just taking after Ray and making these ladders into a 3D model instead of just a plain texture, that alone makes them look so much better. And then we could also add in different variations for different kinds of ladders. Even when you're not climbing them, ladders get a lot of use in build hacks, so different colored ladders makes a lot of sense too. That also makes them look a lot better placed next to their trapdoors, which has never exactly been a winning combo before, especially with this alternating mess. Particles in Minecraft are seriously messed up. That felt good to get off my chest. I know what's annoying is that they're so minute, they're really not getting a lot of attention. Why would they? So today, we're putting a stop to that and changing a few of our particles that got overlooked. Like beds. If you broke a bed before, they were never the right color or texture. But now, anytime you break any of the 16 beds, it looks exactly perfect how it was. And what about our chests? Well, breaking any of those would always use the wrong side facing to the texture. But now if you look at this comparison using the top texture, so much nicer. And you ever wonder why breaking a head breaks off the soul sand particles? Well, we're putting an end to that too. Oh yeah, and for food, no more eating the bowl. Now only the edible parts are the parts that we're actually eating. No longer a bunch of leaf crumbs if you're eating off some sweet berries. And now that our particles are fixed, let's take a look at the totems too. Totems are clearly based off villagers, so I think we gotta give them a nose. It's not the biggest change, but tell me it's not funnier to have this guy showing up whenever you die. I appreciate the guardian angel, I just didn't expect the schnoz. Shields are an invaluable resource for whenever you're playing Minecraft, but they're not that valuable if you want to see what's going on. And so instead, why not make it so that our shields go to the side whenever we're not blocking? That's already what happens if you see ourselves in the third person model, so having that mirrored in first person would make it a lot simpler. And with the way this is placed, it's still very obvious to see that you're holding the shield, it's just not taking up the whole third of your screen. It's a big improvement. What if bows were actually accurate? No, not talking about my bad aim. Noobster, make all of these shots hit. But instead, the idea of being able to see the physical arrow item inside any of the bows while we're shooting them. And this wouldn't just apply to our arrows, but also our firework rockets, our spectral arrows, and our potion-tipped arrow variants. And in Brave's execution, we have different models depending on if it's in your left or right hand with the bow. Or if we want to go even crazier, we could use this option that makes the physical arrow entity inside of the bow. It's a bit cursed at first, but seeing it in action, I actually kind of like it. Especially this multi-shot tipped arrow crossbow. That's a lot better than what we currently got. But if you really don't like the 3D 3D arrows and you want to go back, then we've always got 2D projectiles to land on. And now if we fire off our arrows, they're always going to land as the exact arrow item. But when you shoot them, they also have this great rolling animation too. Chains in vanilla Minecraft are just a texture, which when you see how much cooler 3D chains could be, well, chains feel a lot more disappointing. These chains actually look like they have the weight to hold up a structure. These chains break if you look at them the wrong way. And this doesn't just change the chain item, since the chains that were used in things like the hanging signs now get an upgrade too. Looking a lot better for support than what we had before. And speaking of 3D signs, take an item frame and take your chest plate, put them together, and now you've got the perfect sign for your new armor shop. Since now our items are also going to be 3D when you throw them into the ground, which, full disclosure, does look weird for some of them. But look at how cute the axolotls and the buckets look. Now it's not a tool, it's a friend that you're carrying around. What about the 3D bottles of enchanting? It looks a lot more exciting to use. Did you know doors opening in Minecraft were originally supposed to be animated? Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be this 2-frame solution that we have right now. So what if we changed that back? And now this resource pack, all of our doors have a swinging animation that looks so much better. I was immediately sold when I saw this GIF playing on the mod resource page. It's mesmerizing, especially with double doors. Don't get me wrong, coral reefs are pretty, but coral itself really needs an upgrade. And that's the idea behind corality. Not only does it help to make our different kinds of coral even more distinct, but a bigger footprint also makes them a lot more vibrant when you see them down in the depths. Even without changing the world generation, this one change makes it so much prettier to explore. Which, considering the most use that we get out of corals usually when we kill it off to make ourselves TNT dupers, I think it's nice to see a change where it's better when it's living. Picture this. You spend all this time to find the 1 in 1200 chance of getting yourself the blue axolotl variant, and then when you finally get the thing, you put it inside of a bucket, only to find it looks exactly the same as every single other one. And so, I think the idea of just having a simple tweak where we can see which different color of axolotls in the bucket would be a way for us to not have to change up the texture a whole bunch, but also not make it a guessing game of which friend you're trying to place down in the bucket. But as much as I love axolotls, that's not the worst texture in the inventory. Far from it. Since the most egregious one in my eyes is how our enchanted books have looked. And we've shown off different ones time and time again through these videos. But now I think I found my new favorite. Since now our enchanted books not only have unique distinctions between each one, but they're also all 3D. They've even got unique animations for each one of the enchanted books. And then, just when you thought that was good enough, you'll notice that the further up that you go in levels of enchanting for each one of these books, even those textures change. Meaning, sure, there's a lot of textures to go and memorize, but it's a lot better than the alternative of literally never knowing which one it is until you hover over. I'd much rather have this option. And if we're overhauling enchantments, I think our tools need a little bit of love too. Now, I love the idea of different enchanted tools looking different depending on what enchantments they have. But even if we don't get that, just having this unique glow to each item makes it feel so much more powerful when you got an enchanted sword. The current glint's iconic, but iconic doesn't always mean good. A lot of things get iconic when they're in so many YouTube thumbnails for the most popular game in the world. Doesn't mean that we can't improve. And if we wanted this to only be an option, maybe this could be something that we only get by using a glow ink sac. It'd make our glow squids more useful. It's not like they're overflowing with uses. I love the goat horn. So when there's a tweak that makes the goat horn look even better, it's hard for me not to include it. Now, I'm not someone who thinks that every single item in Minecraft should be 3D. Some definitely have their charm as sprites, but a goat horn that makes a sound they can hear from dozens of blocks away, that's gotta be something special. And now it's an item that I'd actually go and seek out, though I'm personally a fan of Ponder instead. Despite what some of us originally thought, copper tools don't actually oxidize. But I think the idea of having copper tools wear down an oxidation state the longer that you use them is actually really smart. For one, it gives them a unique feature, you know exactly how long you've been using them for, but my interest in it is that it also opens up some pranks, since an oxidized copper tool could look very similar to a diamond pickaxe. And if I'm able to use that to cheat my friends, then it might be worth it for me. I think the changes to spawn eggs that we got in the spring drop was overall a good thing, but it's never made sense to me that some of the spawn eggs kept their eyes and other ones didn't. And so instead, I think this workaround of adding eyes to each one of the spawn eggs would make some of them a lot less creepy, which if you ask me, they're in desperate need of. As of recent snapshots from Minecraft, it's possible to make glowing textures like so. And with that, we can now make ourselves a glowing end portal, which when you see how cool this looks after placing in all the eyes of Ender, I really think a great showcase for this would be getting into the base game. Think about how much cooler it would be to go and fill out the stronghold if you had some of this. That's like you're playing a Minecraft cinematic, which for the cinematic end of Minecraft, seems like a good place for it. Ever since Chase the Skies, our rainstorms have looked a lot different in Minecraft. So why don't our other weather effects get the same treatment? And I think the idea of adding different particle effects to the fog storms that we see inside each biome would look really neat. neat. Like, what about a green haze inside of our lush caves? Or sandstorms that you can find out in the desert and the Badlands? And my personal favorite is adding in soul storms that happen during the soul sand valleys. We're already kicking up enough of these spirits with our soul speed boots. It'd be cool to see a few of them floating around. I hate Z fighting, and you might not know it, but you probably do too. Since Z fighting is the idea that if you place something like an item frame and a pressure plate in the same area, then when textures overlap, it causes this flickering glitch to happen. And this happens a lot inside of Minecraft's code. But with just a couple of simple fixes that this pack lays out, we can solve a lot of those without making the game look any different. And just like that, we can make our item frames and pressure plates actually usable as a build hack. And while we're breaking up texture fights, let's fix our snow too. And here we'd have the change where now if we place things in the snowy tundra, it doesn't just remove it underneath obvious transparent blocks, giving us blades of grass that actually stick up through the snow instead of just revealing that it's not that deep. And I particularly like this when you see with the scaffolding. It's not a full block, why should it behave like so? We've already got water logging, snow logging's the next obvious choice. And the snow logging doesn't stop there. Since if we place a block up on the surface, you'll now notice that if you place a snow layer on any other block, they all get the snowy side texture just as our grass blocks have this whole time, which is a simple overlay, and I think it adds so much character to our winter wonderland. I wouldn't mind getting snowed in if it looked this good. With 4 iron blocks and a carved pumpkin, you get yourself the snow biome golem, because now if you build different iron golems in different biomes, they each have different variant skins. We already got these for our passive mobs, and considering iron golems literally have different plants spawning on their texture, it would make sense that those plants would change depending on where you grew them, and that also makes them stick out a lot more distinct in the different kinds of biome villages. All of which I think is worth seeing, even if the Badlands golem looks like an old Minecraft skin. And while we're looking at the Savannah iron golem, let's zoom out to the Savannah itself, which really does not take the cake for the prettiest Minecraft biome. But let's flip that switch. Since by taking after vanilla tweaks and making this into a golden grass biome, I think it stands out a lot more against the other Minecraft biomes. It even blends better with the acacia wood. I really don't think there's a downside here, especially if they ever want to make any other changes to the Savannah. This would be a good place to start. And as you look up into the night sky, pay extra close attention to this, since now the star textures very subtly twinkle. Again, it's nothing crazy, but for static shots like this, it really does make it feel a lot more cozy. Good night, folks. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, all right?